Editor Isabel Oakeshott. Now, yesterday, the new Tory leader, Keir Starmer, made a powerhouse speech about how she was going to change the immigration policies of the Tory party. She kind of apologised for the mistakes in the past. But now I think I know why she did it. Because, you know, she's completely undermined, and frankly, so is every other member of the Tory cabinet stretching back for 14 years by today's net migration figures, which are shocking, absolutely shocking. These are the people we let into the country legally. So you'll be thrilled to learn, folks, that net migration has dropped by 20% over the year up until June. So the year until this June just gone, net migration plummeted by 20%. Good so far, eh? To 728,000. So nearly 750,000 people were let in last year. And are we supposed to celebrate that? That was down from a record year before, 2023, a record, drumroll, 906,000, nearly a million. So frankly, and these are new statistics released today by the Office for National Statistics, shocking and frankly, Isabel, ludicrous as well. And, you know, I say to Keir Starmer, well, I'm glad you've seen the light now, but what were you lot playing at? What were you thinking of? Oh, let's let 1 million in. Let's let 750,000 in. What are they thinking? What were they thinking?
I believe that today's truly breathtaking immigration figures will be the death knell of the Conservative Party. These figures are truly extraordinary, and we can all feel it, can't we? You know, looking around, the way our country looks and feels now is demonstrably different to how it was a few years ago, and no wonder. We're quite a small country geographically. You can't keep importing literally millions of people without everything starting to feel different. And, you know, fine, if there is an argument, if you're going to do that and you build appropriate infrastructure, then maybe that changes the terms of the debate. But we all know that none of that has been done. So everything feels more crowded and more desperately under pressure. And the Tories have been responsible for a historic betrayal. And what they've done is almost impossible to unravel. You know, unless we're talking about mass-scale deportations, which is not only practically very, very difficult, but politically near enough impossible, then I'm afraid we're stuck with all these additional people. And that has huge and permanent repercussions for all of us. So it is truly shameful and, you know, almost words fail, the scale of this betrayal of the British people. And I don't know how we get ourselves out of this now. Keir Starmer, for once today, had his finger on the pulse sufficiently to recognise that the British people, hearing about these figures, are feeling frankly mutinous. And so he did the right thing for once and actually stood out in front of the press and gave a statement acknowledging that these figures are, as he put it, off the chart. And I was really pleased to hear a political leader admitting that the figures are off the chart. But here's the thing, because as always, Sir Keir Starmer, his next step was a crashing disappointment. He repeatedly refused to say that he would put a cap on immigration. And I'm afraid that is just terminal from the point of view of British voters. I'm sure of it, because we are all fed up of hearing politicians say, well, they'd like to significantly bring the numbers down. That's all he would say tonight. That is nowhere near good enough for a population that has been, frankly, totally deceived by their political leaders. What people want to hear now is that there will be no more immigration at all, you know, net zero immigration. And unfortunately, the Prime Minister, whilst he acknowledges that what's happened is a complete and utter disgrace, he's not prepared to take the political risk of putting any figure on it. You know, be nice even if he just said, okay, I'm going to cap it here and now. I'm going to say there's going to be no more than 100,000 or something, but he won't even take that risk. That's cowardly.
Let's just remind ourselves, as you say, in response to these shocking figures, the Prime Minister called a kind of special press moment. Let's just remind ourselves of Keir in action.
They were promised by the last government that it would get control of our borders, and we had a government that completely lost control of our borders. And this sort of increase is unprecedented. It's off the scale, what has happened in 4 short years. The way to get it down is the hard graft, not the gimmicks, but the hard graft of driving it down on the skills agenda, migration advisory committee, making sure we're cracking down on employers that are breaking the rules, taking all the measures I've set out, measures that will have an impact on our immigration, which I do want to come down significantly. It needs to reduce. Today, what we found is another incredible legacy failure, which is record numbers of immigration. It's our job now to turn it around, and we will.
Well, I hope he's right, Isabel, but for once he is justified in saying this is all down to the Tories. And you're right. I mean, the Tories have got such an apology to make to us, and I don't think they can recover. I don't think they realise, you know, just what a mess they made. They just think, oh, we've had a bit of a tough time, but we will regroup, we will, you know, regain power. I think people are going to look at this and say, no, 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 you completely let us down. And you quite rightly cite that Keir Starmer won't put a number on the immigration cap, nor would Kemi Badenoch. Now, I've got an idea. Right, considering we've been letting in 750,000, a million. I believe a few years ago it was 600,000. You know, they're coming in every year. This has happened for 14 years. Vast amounts of people being legally let in, to the extent that this country is now pretty much packed with officially near enough 70 million people. When I was a kid, it was 55 million. It's now 70 million, nearly 70 million, but they also think there may be as many as 10 million people who are undocumented, so it could be as many as 18 million. Our infrastructure is creaking at the seams. No wonder you can't get a hospital appointment or you can't get treatment in hospitals. Transport doesn't work, nothing works. Well, so here's an idea. This would be my idea for the number of immigrants we let in legally next year. 0.
Yeah.
Why not?
I agree.
It's time to stop this.
I agree. Other countries are doing this. They are just saying 0. And I understand politically that it's a risk to put a number on it. And of course, saying 0 is going to be essentially impossible to achieve. You know, there's always going to be 1 or 2. But I think the voter would be immensely grateful for a politician that said, actually, I want it to be 0, or I want it to be no more than a handful. And by a handful, I mean, you know, sub a few thousand, because I recognise that, you know, we do need certain specialists or whatever. But no politician of any of the main leading parties appears to be brave enough to do that. I mean, it's a tremendous political opportunity for a party that is prepared to put figures on this, for a party that is prepared to put this at the heart of their agenda. And I just thought that press conference that the Prime Minister gave today was such a wasted opportunity, because for once he almost got it right. He almost got it right. But then all the things that he listed about how he was going to try and bring immigration down were so wishy-washy and woolly, weren't they? They're a bit like, well, you know, we're going to ask employers to exercise a bit more discretion, and we're going to try to, you know, regain some control and get more people having the skills that we need. What a load of wishy-washy paid nonsense. You know, what...
And frankly, Isabel, so was Kemi Badenoch's nonsense yesterday, wishy-washy and vague. These people, it's like I said to you yesterday, we need some politicians in terms of our immigration problem, in terms of our migrant crisis. We need some politicians with some resolve. you know, to actually say, right, we're bringing down the drawbridge, no more, nobody else is coming in. You know, we're going to turn the boats round. We're going to prosecute people who turn up here illegally and deport them. We're going to get rid of every single foreign criminal in our prisons, all 10,000 of them. They never say any of this. They never say any of this until we get... Yeah, it's ridiculous.
One figure I want to quickly pick up on is that the number of work visas, the number of people who came over here on work visas was actually outnumbered by all the dependents that they brought. I mean, this is ludicrous. So you hear the government say, oh, well, we need people to come in and fill jobs. Well, I don't even accept that. But even if you accept that, do we also need their wives, their children, their aunts, their uncles? Because that people is what's happening. I tell you what, other countries don't do that. They give you a work visa for a year or two, and then you go back home, because by then those countries are efficient enough to have filled those gaps with someone else or a rotating number of new arrivals. You can't just give people visas and their whole families and make it a permanent thing.
And you know that students, when they're doing their masters, that they can bring their entire families over as well, which is a real racket. And when he was Prime Minister and Rishi Sunak was told that, really right across the migrant, he said, you know that students can bring their family. He went, really? Really? That doesn't sound right. I mean, it's pathetic, isn't it? It's pathetic.